Warning: this is a true crime channel and is not for the faint of heart or the easily impressionable. This video may contain details that some viewers may find highly disturbing. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. You have been warned.
Hey everybody. Today I want to talk to you guys about a subject that is a very difficult topic for me to discuss, and that topic is the neurological disorders known as ADD and ADHD. And what ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, and ADD stands for Attention Deficit Disorder. These disorders are something many of you have probably at least heard of, especially in the United States, as about 3 million people get diagnosed with one or the other, or even sometimes both, every year. Now, while I do believe this may be an overdiagnosis, it being that high at least, that's more so because of the fact that it can be confused with things like depression, OCD, LD, or learning disability, just as a general statement, and a few other things, and also due to the fact that there is a very common misunderstanding of it in society as a whole, and I do believe some people get diagnosed with these two disorders, or one of them, and they're just false diagnoses, and they just simply don't have it, either of them. Granted, it can go the other way too with ADD and ADHD, because they're both very difficult to distinguish from normal personality traits, as most people get diagnosed between the ages of 9 and 13. So you can only imagine the kind of confusion this disorder would cause. But I'm here to tell you that yes, these disorders are real, and yes, we're going to talk about them. Now, a lot of the time, if you ask someone who doesn't have either of these disorders what ADD or ADHD is, they might give you a couple different responses. The most common that I've experienced are, one, it's where you can't sit still, you fidget. Another one is, oh, it's just when a kid daydreams a lot. Another one is, it's when you can't pay attention. Or possibly the worst one I've personally encountered is someone actually stating, that's not a real thing. It's just a reason to put kids on drugs. It's because parents don't discipline their kid enough and the teachers are too lazy to deal with the kids they teach. It's called childhood. They'll grow out of it. Or you make them grow out of it. Not while the first and the third explanation are in their own way true, that fidgeting and not being able to pay attention, those are symptoms, but that's not all ADD or ADHD actually are. Fidgeting is a symptom, but not always. Hyperactivity actually can mean racing thoughts, hyperactive brainwaves, or hyperactive behavior. Hyperactive behavior just means you're hyper. You're very energetic, and that can just be a personality trait. An inability to focus is, in fact, a core trait of both disorders as well. However, the last comment I've personally heard, actually quite a lot, is truly the worst thing you can say to someone who has ADD or ADHD, or even both, as yes, you can have both, or even a varying degree of either of them, as both of them are actually on a spectrum of severity. It's not, whether you have it or not. It's not like you have cancer or you don't have cancer. You can have a very mild form of one or both, or you could have a very severe form of one or both. And it just depends on where you fall on that spectrum. Now, both disorders, as I said, are very real. They both suck to have to any degree. They both affect every single aspect of your life. They both make every day a constant struggle, and it's a struggle that you pretty much face alone. is not a lot of people understand these disorders, and not many people can or are even willing to help you out. Sometimes the person with either of these disorders can grow out of it. If it's mild enough, they can even, not take medication for it, and they can just figure it out themselves. And those people are incredibly lucky. But these disorders can also be severe enough and can last a lifetime. With those people, they have to take pills to control it. And these pills may or may not work. They cannot help how these disorders affect them. They just can't get over it. That's not an option. It's just not possible. It's not like you can choose to have these disorders. Okay, that's not a thing. You just can't do that. You cannot just choose not to it. One of the worst things I've actually heard is someone actually asking, well, can't you just be normal? No. When you have these disorders, no, you can't. Now, what is ADD and ADHD? Well, they're both very similar, but still two different neurological disorders that make it very difficult to focus on tasks, learn new tasks right away. It's difficult to retain knowledge, especially in school, as most schools teach in a very specific way that isn't exactly compatible with those who have ADD or ADHD. And it can be very difficult for them to grasp what they're being taught and understand. One also tends to be easily distracted by sounds and movement, and even one's own thoughts with these disorders. More so with ADHD, though, your thoughts tend to race a lot. It's also very easy to be compulsive. It can also affect your short-term memory. For an example, whereas let's say the average person may be able to recall 5 things that they are just told and will be able to repeat them all back to you about 5 minutes later. Well, when you have ADD or ADHD, you might only be able to remember 2 of those things. Then, as opposed to all 5. And now this may not always be the case, but it tends to be a common trait. Another symptom of both of these disorders is fidgeting, but it's not always one. Zoning out tends to be another symptom of both. There's also a tendency to chatter and go off topic. That's also pretty common. Now, those are just a few symptoms that both of these disorders have. And even if you have the ones I listed and talked about, that doesn't mean you have either disorder. If you think you might have one of them or both of them, you should go see your doctor and get checked out by it. Don't just take a YouTube video as a diagnosis. Don't diagnose yourself. You don't want this disorder. It fucking sucks. Now, you guys might be actually wondering why I know so much about this topic, and that's because I have it. I was diagnosed with ADHD about 20 years ago. It affects every aspect of my life. It sucks 90% of the time. And I've gotten nothing but shit for a condition that I didn't ask to get and that I can't control. And what do I mean by getting shit? I mean people calling me a drug addict because of the medication that I take, because most ADD meds and ADHD meds are usually amphetamines. If you were around in the 90s, you remember that whole Ritalin thing that was going on with kids. And I was on that medication for a short period of time, but unfortunately the problem with that particular medication is that it comes with a very heavy crash when it wears off. So it wasn't very good for me, and it wasn't working very well for me. So now I'm on a different medication that's also very common. The other one is Adderall, or Adderall XR, depending. And that one's worked for me fairly well. But because it's an amphetamine, people like to state that, oh, you're just a drug addict, or, oh, your disease doesn't exist, or not disease, I shouldn't say disease. Your disorder doesn't exist, it's just because your parents didn't discipline you enough. And I can say for a fact that that is a complete and total pile of horseshit, because I have very authoritarian parents, I have very controlling parents, very overprotective parents, to a point that it actually affects my everyday life. I'm not going to go into my parents, I'm not going to talk about them, but yeah, no, discipline was not an issue in my house, and in fact, it's not an issue with someone who actually has this disorder, so y'all can fuck off. I've also been treated by teachers very differently. One teacher I had took my diagnosis of ADHD as a, and I shit you not, a type of mental retardation, and she treated me as such, and that's how she spoke to me. It was, do you understand this? Do you get this? Do you want me to explain it to you again? And that's how she would talk to me all the time. I'm not dumb. In fact, most people with this disorder are not dumb. They're not stupid. We know what the hell we're doing. We just have a disorder that makes it very, very difficult for us to function on a day-to-day basis. And kids can have this disorder. Adults can have this disorder. And it's, like I said, it's not always something that you can just grow out of or get over. That's not a thing. I honestly wish I could grow out of my ADD or ADHD. I really wish I could. I wish I didn't have it at all. But I can't. And it sucks because I'm well into my adult years and I still have to leave myself notes. I still have to remind myself of things. Simple things are on my phone for alerts so that I can remember to do these things. My parents leave me notes and they give me shit for it because at my age apparently they shouldn't have to write me notes. Well, normal people at my age don't have the issues I have. My short-term memory is very bad. I get distracted very easily. I do tend to chatter a lot, especially when I'm feeling very anxious or very nervous. It affects the fact that I am very hesitant to date because I'm afraid that the person who I try to form a relationship with will find me annoying and a burden and half a million other things. So I avoid dating. Partly. There are some other issues I have too, but in concerning for this video, those are the ones that apply to my disorder. ADD and ADHD can also affect you emotionally very much. Because of what it is and what it does, you do tend to fall behind your peers a little bit. And you have to work 10 times as hard to get to the same point that your peers are at, especially in school. You do get treated very differently by teachers, as most teachers even don't know how to deal with you or how to help you, and you can get very frustrated very easily, and you can actually have full-on mental breaks. You can just literally just break down, and it affects girls and it affects boys. Boys actually have an extra symptom of, they have a more of a tendency to show it through aggression. So they can also be misdiagnosed as having depression or even anger management issues or something similar to that. And it could just be ADD or ADHD. But there is such a stigma with these disorders saying that they don't exist or that they shouldn't exist, or I can prove I have this disorder. I can prove it through a test called an EEG. Now, an EEG measures your brain waves and it tracks them. And if you have either disorder, you will have abnormal patterns in your brain waves. And I can prove that I have these abnormal patterns. I have the results of my EEGs throughout the years for the past 20 years. Like I said, people with this disorder or these disorders, they're not stupid. They're not. We just need a little extra help. And a lot of people aren't willing to understand it or even recognize it as a disorder. And people aren't willing to deal with those like me. And it hurts a lot. Even parents have a very difficult time dealing with their kids when they have this disorder, because it is very unpredictable. It's not fun for anybody involved. No parent wants to see their kids struggle, but they also normally can't understand what their kid is going through. And for those parents who have a kid with ADD or ADHD, and you can see that they're struggling, take it from someone who's been through it. One of the best things that I was able to do was, one of my parents found a group therapy for kids with ADD and ADHD and other very similar disorders. And what really helped during that time in particular was to know that I wasn't alone. I'm sorry for the background noise. I'm actually at work recording this. But yes, one of the biggest things that you will feel when you do get diagnosed is that you're alone. That you're the only one with this problem, and you're not. To anyone out there who has ADD or ADHD and you're feeling alone right now, I can tell you, you're not. Lots of us have this disorder. And yeah, I'll agree. Life is complicated enough without this bullshit. And it really doesn't get better. I hate to say it, but it doesn't get better. You just learn to cope with it better. You learn to bear it better. You learn to hide your struggle. You learn to cry on the inside, and therapy helps, though. Therapy helps a lot. Therapy really does fucking help. And so does certain other activities. Coloring, in coloring books, adult coloring books or children's coloring books, that helps. It helps relieve some stress. You can relax and just shut your mind off for a little while, and that really helps. I take mixed martial arts, and that seems to help a lot. It forces my mind to stay focused on a singular task for a long time, and that tends to also burn off a lot of excess energy that I build up, and it's good stress relief. For those of you who live with someone with ADD or ADHD, please, I know you guys can't understand. I know you guys don't understand why we can't do the things that you can, or can recall things the way you can, or even think the way you do. And I'm sorry that we can't. And it hurts us more than you know that we can't do these things, because we know we should be able to. But writing notes for us, just little lists of what important things you want us to do, that helps us immensely. We do appreciate it. Sometimes that's what we need to do. Asking us if we've eaten, because especially on Adderall, you have a tendency to forget to eat. Seriously, that is actually a thing. And it's a thing that actually happens. Our thoughts race so much that we don't notice how hungry we are until we actually sit down and we eat, and we realize that we're fucking starving. And I will say that even though 90% of the time having this disorder sucks, it does have a few good things, I think. It's not all horrible, because luckily there is a lot of us who do have this disorder and can relate, and that really helps. But there's also a specific type of personality that we tend to have because of our disorder. There are some things that actually help. A lot of people with ADD and ADHD also do tend to suffer from insomnia, which actually helps if you work the third shift like I do, or if you just like to, surf the web and stay up until all hours. We also have a hyperfocus of our mind, where we will focus on one specific thing, and once we do get motivated and get to actually doing that task, we do it, and we do it well. We are also very resilient because we put up with nothing but bullcrap all the time. We also tend to be very generous with our money, with our time and resources. We tend to have a very good ingenuity. We have a strong sense of what is fair and what is right. We tend to be a bit of risk takers. Like I said, we tend to be a bit compulsive, and we will take risks. We also have the ability to make very far-reaching analogies that no one in their right mind would ever understand. We tend to be kind of spontaneous at times, and I like to say that people with ADD or ADHD, actually, we have a Ferrari brain, but it's built with Chevy brakes. And actually, we also, there's also a little thing that said ADHD, it's highway to, oh my god, squirrel. That's actually not that far off. We like to surprise people We like to give people gifts without reason, just to cheer them up or just to make them happy. Some of us are actually pretty funny. I don't think I'm one of them. We also tend to be a bit of romantics. We're pretty good at conversations. We can talk about anything at just random intervals because we tend to find everyday, safe conversation or just small talk to be very boring. And we don't like to do it. So we're the kind of people who don't ask you, oh, how's the weather? How's the neighbors? How's the wife? How's the kids? We want to know your hopes, your dreams, your fears. We want to know what the hell is going on in your life, and we're genuine about it. We have a pretty good understanding of emotions, even if we can't fully express them ourselves. We do honestly believe that anything is possible. I mean, fuck, if we can get through it. We're really not satisfied with the status quo most of the times. We do have a lot of compassion and we can be very persistent. We can also be incredibly creative. We tend to use outlets such as art, music, writing, and just other creative hobbies, and we tend to be very good at them. We can always provide you with a different perspective of things because we have very different perspectives on everything. We also are very willing to fight for what we believe in and to fight for those we care about. We're very protective of those we consider our friends and our family. More likely because we don't really have much else. And we're very good at motivating other people. We know what we would want to hear. And we know what would make us have felt better. Even though we're not very organized, we're not very punctual, and we're not very responsible. We do usually have a very almost childlike personality. We don't like to hate people. We like to give everyone that one chance, and we want to be everyone's friend. Even though it's pretty clear that not everyone wants to be our friend. We also have a tendency to be loyal to a fault. Those are the good points. And if you were to ever ask me if I would trade my ADHD to have a normal mind, to not have to rely on a pill, I would also have to hesitate. Because my ADHD also makes me who I am. It's so much a part of me, and it has shaped so much of my personality. If I never had it, I don't know who I would be. I don't know if I would be doing YouTube. Because with people who have ADHD, we have certain interests that are usually very strange to others. But the topics we do know, even though we might be very fuzzy on other topics, if we just don't find them interesting, we won't pay attention to them. But for the subjects that we do genuinely enjoy, we become almost obsessed with them. And it's a part of that hyper focus. We want to know everything about that topic. And a good way to describe ADHD is that we don't think inside the box. We don't think outside the box either. We don't even know where the damn box is, to be perfectly honest. Our strengths are what give us traction, and they allow us to do the things that we do well already. But there's also the aspect of everything else just being spinning wheels, not going anywhere. A good way to kind of describe what ADHD is like to have it, it's like you're a computer browser with like 72 tabs open. 10 of them are error 404. 7 of them aren't responding. There is porn in there somewhere, and nobody can figure out where the fuck that annoying music is coming from. That's probably one of the best analogies I've ever heard for ADHD. But it's not fun. It's not fun to have. It's just it's very difficult to describe. And it's hard. Because there's a few things that I do wish a lot of parents knew about ADHD. And that's the fact is, we really do care what's going on in our life. We really do. And we can make it work. We can make this work long term. We can do it. It just takes a while. And while you are our parent, sometimes we don't need criticism. Sometimes that criticism makes it fucking worse. Sometimes we just need you to be supportive. We just need you to understand. That's it. That's all we really want. Just to be understood. And when we do get older, we want to be able to make those decisions. We want to have that freedom. Please do not infantilize us. Don't infantilize us. It's insulting. We know we have a disorder. We know. Trust us. We fucking know. We've noticed. But we also know everything else too. We know what you go through. We're not oblivious to it. And it kills us. It kills us, all the sacrifices you have to make, all the things that you have to do for us. It fucking kills us. And for our partners, please don't be our parent. You're not our parent. We have parents. Stop. I know we're hard to live with, but we really do care about you. And we really don't mean to make it difficult. It's just something that we have. Something that we have to live with. That's all I can really say on this topic. I'm about at my wit's end with it. I've broken into tears more than once during this entire video, and I think I'm just going to end it here. So I hope this kind of explained what these disorders were, and what it's at least kind of like to actually live with it. I'll attach links in the description for anyone who wants to learn more. I will see you guys next time. Peace.